Welcome to Black Man Lab. We are live Monday, June 14th. Welcome, everybody. We're excited about tonight, excited about our topic and our panelists. And before we get started with anything, I want to just make sure that we acknowledge our other brothers on the panel that are part of the Black Man Lab Foundation board. First and foremost, our chairman of the board and co-founder of Black Man Lab, Brother Maoli Davis. Maoli, what's good, brother? And then also,
What's up, fam?
What's up, bro? And we have my brother, my partner in crime, Joe Barker, on as well. Joe, how you doing, broski?
I'm great, man. I'm great. Appreciate you being here for us for a bit, man. Love it.
All right. And then also we got my man, Jared Grant, my brother Jared Grant, who is on as well, one of our board members. Jared, what's happening, broski?
What's going on, Black man? How y'all doing?
Glad to have you here tonight, bro. And then last but not least, my man, Miguel Dominguez. What's happening, Miguel?
What's going on, brothers? How y'all doing?
Good, man. Glad to see you, partner. I'm gonna turn it over to Maoli and the other brothers because I got to jump off tonight. But I just wanted to check in and get a little bit of this Black Man Lab love myself before I had to go deal with some family stuff. So, Maoli, Joe, what's up, bros?
Hey, man. Appreciate you. Hey, wish Mama Suge, your mother, a happy 80th birthday. Tell her she is still the most beautiful 80-year-old person that we know. And tell her happy birthday from Black Man Lab. We love her. And just keep doing what she's doing, man. And tell your dad, keep getting well. And the whole family, we love them. Appreciate you, Marty.
Will do, man. Appreciate that,
brother. Happy birthday for me, too.
Thank you.
So look, y'all, this is an incredible topic, man. I'm excited to be able to rock with Joe. We've got Brother Fred Parham in here as well. And then obviously Brother Jared is one of the founding fathers of Black Man Lab. And we want to get it kicked off. And we always start with those deep centering breaths, those breaths that put us in this space that allow us to just center ourselves. And so we want to let Fred do that. In Fred's absence, sometimes Joe does it, but Joe always defers to Fred when he's here. So, respect Fred. Want to get us there. And then we'll turn. Yeah, then we'll turn to Jared so that we can welcome the ancestors into the space, and then we can rock.
Great evening, Maoli, and all the viewers and listeners, man. Thank you, brothers, for having me in the space, bringing, this important part to the conversation. But before I get to that, I just wanted to thank the brothers for their investment and support of what we've been doing for 5 years now, which is the Juneteenth Dashiki Party. And so certainly want to thank the brothers. Want to lift the lab up and welcome the entire community to the event on the 19th. And so with that, though, if everybody would, how long is forever? It's in the moment right now. And so if you will assume a position of, reverence with your body erect, principally focusing on your spine, that optimal blood flow. And then from there, brothers and sisters, we ask that you in this moment, underneath my breath, when I count to 3, take a deep breath, hold it for a moment, and then exhale. So on 1, 2, 3, exhale. Let your shoulders fall. You should actually feel those shoulders fall. And then once again, inhale on 3, 1, 2, 3, and exhale. And I would just encourage us to do that at any moment of trial, tribulation, struggle, strain, or stress. Take a deep breath before you act, brothers.
Amen.
Back to you, Maoli.
Careful now, brother. We hear you. We hear you dropping some science in there.
Yes.
Brother Jared.
Oh, man. Well,
bring the ancestors in. And I do want to lift up just one ancestor for our consideration. I know, Jared, you were going to lift him up. but in 1980, on June 13th, which was yesterday, the great scholar from Guyana, Walter Rodney, was assassinated. And we lifted him up on yesterday with his family. And there was an incredible breakthrough in that struggle for justice, in that the country and the government of Guyana officially recognized that he was assassinated. Prior to that, they had said it was misadventure and that he was unemployed, even though he was a professor and scholar activist of the highest level. So we have a victory in our Pan-African struggle, and I just wanted to lift that up. Dr. Patricia Rodney, Kanini Rodney, Shaka and Asha, all family, and then his brother Donald, who was in the vehicle and was falsely charged and convicted of his own brother's for being a part of his own brother's death.
Shay, brother. Thank you, brothers, and welcome new brothers. We always like to pay reverence to our ancestors. Our ancestors left such a great legacy for us to follow. Our ancestors provided us a great pathway and blueprint in order for us to be successful. So we like to put them in our hearts and mind and give honor to our ancestors. So we've always talked about the great ancient civilizations of Ethiopia and Kemet, and all that they produce. So we like to say Ashe to them, all brothers, Ashe. And we also like to just pay reverence to those ancestors that created some other great civilizations like Mali, Ghana, and Songhai. We give great praise and thanks to them. All brothers, we say Ashe.
Ashe.
And brothers, ancestors struggled and survived the Middle Passage. We want to pay reverence to those ancestors and say Ashe to them as well, Ashe.
Ashe.
And we also want to pay reverence to those who struggled and survived slavery and colonialism. We say Ashe, Ashe. And now we want to give reverence to the individual greats like Walter Rodney, like Ida B. Wells, like Mama Moses, like Nzinga, like Shaka, like Hannibal, like Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. We want to pay reverence to all of these folks and individuals. Everybody say Ashe. And then we want to, those 10,000 ancestors that took to create you, your own bloodline. And I'm gonna ask the brotherhood real quick on 3 to just name 1 or 2 folks in your own bloodline. 1, 2, 3.
Pearl Davis,
Washington,
Matthews,
Ashe. And so we give great praise and thanks to those ancestors, and we say Ashe 3 times on 3. 1, 2, 3. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Oh. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Professor Grant. We appreciate you, brother. We're looking forward to this Sunday, you all. We will have our annual Black Man Lab Father's Day gathering. Meet us at the Old Fourth Ward Park. We're going to be out there doing volleyball, different cooking out and just kicking it. And so we're really going to try to bring forward all of our young brothers that we have missed since COVID started, encouraging them to come out, connect. Whether you have a son, you don't have a son, just come out and let's connect. I want to turn it over to Brother Joe Barker. And many of you all see Joe every single Monday. This brother is as committed as they come. Just a solid brother, graduate of the Florida A&M University. And look at him strike and strike again. I won't mention his for
there
Keith,
we go.
Keith, I'm not going to mention his Greek letter affiliation. And I say Greek letter because ain't none of us Greek. We African. We just are in Greek letter organizations. Yeah. So I'm going to let him do all of that. But just a hint, he is dressed in black and gold. So I'm going to give him that. And Keith, represent your frat when your time comes, brother. Don't let these alphas try to intimidate us, man. We are, they run deep, but come on now. So Joe, I'm gonna let you take it from here, brother. Bring them through with the first questions, and then we'll go from there. And again, welcome everyone to Black Man Lab. We will be returning in person. Right now, tentatively, it looks like July 19th at the Dr. Andrew and Walter Young YMCA.
Yeah, show up.
We crazy excited about that, man. And we just got to work out the logistics. But for now, we're going to keep rocking this platform. So Joe, it's all yours, brother.
So look, man, that's a great point. What I have all these brothers doing podcasts, man. We open with ancestors, we open with centering ourselves, and we know that when we get back in space with one another, how powerful that's going to be. So all my brothers in here that are doing those podcasts, I beg of you, man, go ahead and throw that out there, that July 19th, we will be back in space with one another, man, because the energy that we've had over the past year online has been palpable. It's been much needed, but it's nothing like once we're all in space together. So let's start spreading that word. So what I want to do next, man, is we have some very powerful panelists on here, brothers that I know I've been in space with them. Some of them I've even been on their podcast, and we won't even talk about some of the things that came up in some of them sessions, but it's some very, very great, informative things that are talked about with these brothers. And so I want you all to each kind of introduce yourself, who you are, what your specific podcast is about, and the space that you're in. I think this is a good time that if you want to plug yourself, go ahead and let us know what your handle is. If you want to put it on the chat, we'll make sure it goes on Facebook. We see people checking in on there. But just want to know who you are, and first, before we get started. And one surprise guest that I've asked to be on tonight is our amazing executive producer, Mark Lawson, who is a behind the scenes man, getting a lot done. I've asked him to come on because all you brothers that do all these great things, man, I know that you all also have some folks behind the scenes doing some things. So I want him to weigh in on some of that also. So Eldridge, we're going to start with you, man. If you want to just introduce yourself and what your podcast is about.
Cool. My name is Eldridge Washington. Let me just say, super excited to hear that the Black Man Lab is coming back. Proud of you brothers for keeping it going digitally, but as we all know, there's nothing like being in the energy of the brotherhood. So that's going to be an exciting thing. And hopefully that means the return of the Black Man Lab pod. I don't know, but, we can talk about that. All right. So my name is Eldridge, host of the Just Eldridge podcast. I will have podcasting 3 years come July. My podcast, we talk about a little bit of everything from business, community, God, and relationships. You name it, we do it all. And from there, we also started Just Eldridge Media, which is a podcast network where we are actually releasing shows that talk about different topics, from politics to community conscious, to sisters who have podcasts, to even podcasts on law. So that's me. That's a little bit about me. Super excited about it. I got to give homage to a brother that's on this call, Keith. You're gonna hear about him. He's the reason why I am a podcaster. This brother paved the way and really gave me a real blueprint. So I'm excited to be on the same panel with him.
Keith, the pioneer, the podcast pioneer.
I tell you what, that's just the perfect segue, Keith. We got to go to you after that, brother.
Well, I'm Keith, Keith Haygood, president, Just Eldridge Media, co-host, Just Eldridge Podcast, also owner of New Voices, which is a podcast production company. So I produce some podcasts, Black Man Lab podcast for one, shout out. Excellent Nicole, also some other big names out there. Yeah, I've just been doing this audio thing for about 6 years now. And me and Eldridge has been rocking in the podcast world for about 3 years. We've been sneaking into studios.
Yeah.
Trying to get podcasting in. But outside of that, I'm just all things podcast, man. I've been following this industry for some years, and like if it's going on in podcasting, I'm my ears to it. So like I love being behind the scenes. We just celebrated our 100th episode. So that's the only reason why I'm on the camera again today, because I'm still hyped for the camera. So after this, I'm going back behind the camera.
All right, Keith. Well, I think I've seen you before, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and blame you for the fact that Eldridge had my wife on his podcast just coming all out the box. Like my shy little mama just saying all kind of stuff. I'm like, wow, like how you put that out her, I'll never know.
Hey, go check it out, man. You ladies make that email. It's a good episode. It's a good episode.
No. Let's not talk about that. All right, we're gonna go on to you, Darius. We're gonna go on to you, brother.
Appreciate that. Hey, I appreciate the invitation here. I've been hearing about this Black Man Lab for some time through the brother Eldridge, watching what he does on the platform. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Name is Darius Hicks. Background in podcasting has been about 2.5 years now. My podcast is called Wild Black, like Life Wild Black. We do 3 things and only 3 things on Wild Black. We talk about topics that impact Black America, the Black world, and create awareness, correct misinformation, and drive inspiration. And if the topic or the guest can do that, then we can have a very good conversation about those topics. The whole point of what we do is to educate and make a better Black America and a better Black world. Other than that, my background has been engineering, marketing, digital, sales for quite some time. And it's just a pleasure to be here with you brothers today.
Appreciate you, Darius. Thanks for joining us, man. We're gonna come back to you in just a minute because what you just talked about was basically going to be my first question with respect to some of the content. So we're gonna start with you when I come back. But right before that, I want Mark, man, just kind of introduce yourself, producer extraordinaire, and tell us about some of the spaces that you're in, Mark.
All right. My name is Mark Lawson. My background is software development and technology consultant. I've been interested in media for a while. And when the pandemic hit and Black Man Lab decided to go digital, I dug into just trying to figure out exactly what the technology was. And then so from there, there's some other things that I started working with other people. There's a show on Twitch called It's the How Show. And digging into that. So that's a Twitch show that's live on Twitch, as well as I'm a member of Technologists of Color, and we've done some things online. So we'll get into it, but I've dug into it from the tech side of like figuring out what are the different podcasting softwares and things that you can get into to be able to do that. So look to share that portion of what I do.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate all you do with Black Man Lab. I want to jump right into it, man. And Darius, we're going to start with you. First question I have, and I want to start with you because you kind of indicated some of the creative content and specifically what y'all talk about. I want to ask each of you this, and we'll start with you, Darius. But why did you go into this space to talk about that? Why was that important to you?
Right. For me, it's a combination of passion and obligation, right? When you look at the life that I live, I've been blessed, oftentimes beyond measure. But even that, I looked up and I'm a Black man every day, all day. And there were tons of things going on that affected the community around me. Right. And I wanted to do my part to make sure that these folks, my brothers, my sisters, my fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, had all the information that they needed to arm themselves to operate every day in this world. And there's a much longer story, but in its shortest fashion, I was talking to a cousin of mine. We had a really good conversation about 401ks and investing. And at the end of that conversation, he asked me what was a 401k.
Wow.
And I felt heartbroken because this is my big cousin, right? I looked up to him my entire life. I never thought about what he did or his education, but I knew what a 401k was. And someplace in there, I had let him down and I hadn't told him what a 401k was. And it just got me to thinking about using my cousin as a proxy for Black America. What else do we not know, right? What else do you not know? What else do I not know? And so I wanted to put my network to use. I've got a very vast network of people. So I started tapping folks about, hey, let's come together and let's teach folks all these things that they either don't know or are afraid to admit they don't know or don't know they need to know. And that compilation of ideology is what led to creating Wild Black. And it is an educational platform that is meant to be easily consumed, digested, and understand to make us each better.
I tell you what, man, you definitely are going to have to put that website or link in the chat box because I want to go put it on our Facebook link right now so that brothers and sisters that are watching can see that and check that out, man. Because that's what we're all about, man. Promoting and caring for one another. And it sounds like that's exactly why you got into this. So appreciate
100%.
your
Appreciate it.
Awesome. So Keith, we're gonna come to you next, man. It sounds like you've been in the space the longest time, and as I hear stories like Darius, where he's an engineer, thought, hey, I need to be doing something different. I need to be in a different space, and he makes that move. You've been in it for quite a while. I would venture to say you were probably in it where it wasn't so popular, so cool to be doing it. So tell me what that was like when you got in, some of the difficulties, and why'd you get in it?
So I had some other things going on, but long story short, I ended up with an internship at a radio station, internet radio station. And I was trying to work my way to actual radio, but in the midst of that, I found out like, okay, the FCC has rules, there's regulations on what you can and can't say, trying to censor our voices. And then I start seeing these podcasts pop up. Everybody that has an Apple phone saw the podcast app. And nobody ever really clicked on it before.
We used to delete it. We didn't know what it was.
Mine's deleted on my phone.
I started finding out about podcasts, and I was like, it's a very low entry. You can just talk, say what you want to say, and people can get it directly to them.
Wow.
And at the time, my boss, I was trying to tell her, like, look, this internet radio is cool, but we should just go ahead and do a whole podcasting thing. Let's just go ahead and switch over. And the other thing I liked about podcasting too, though, it was a little overhead. So even though she didn't see the vision, I was able to go ahead and leave. Let's start this podcast. He was willing to start the podcast, and then on top of that, I just got into like the editing of it. I love the sound design of it, and I just love like what Darius was saying. It just gives you that level playing field, especially for Black people. It's kind of like in the tradition of, we're all in Atlanta, in the tradition of WAOK. That talk. Right. Direct to the person, so you can go ahead and get that message and get a call to action. So like that's what really got me into it, and I've just been following it. And once it started to boom as far as like ad money and all this other things, I mean, it's still the wild west. It's still
right. So I mean, I just want to go back to some of the things that Darius was saying. How important is it that you speak about the content that you speak of? And is there generally an area that you center around, or is it just you're just being that voice that's needed in the community? Keith, that's for you.
Well, actually,
is it a general topic or area that you center around with your conversations, or is it just your voice and you allow other voices to be heard?
So for me, I'm behind the scenes. So I like putting those voices out there in a bunch of different voices. That's kind of why I started the New Voices. It's supposed to be the word new and new. Like these are people that you know, but you want to hear more voices. And it's not just limited to us. It's about almost everybody who has a voice to say something in a positive light for us, because we also have other podcasts that I produce as one-offs that people just want to get their message out. But for me, it's really all about getting that message for Black people. Nobody can take it down, and we own it. That's right. And nobody can tell us what to do with it. So, like for the most part, yeah, it's mostly about Black voices and getting that out and getting this hidden history. All of this stuff that we've kind of known has happened, but still is not out there. Podcasts really, I mean, it opens all that up. And if you just listen to any random podcast, that's I really feel like podcasts is really what's moving a lot of the social stuff that's going on, because they expose the story, and then a big media company will pick up on it and turn it into a TV show or news article, and it becomes bigger.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree that that's so much needed, and appreciate you doing that. Eldridge, I want to come over to you, man, because it was funny, man, when I've been knowing you for a while now, Eldridge. We just bumped into each other at one of the alum dinners, man, and just kind of knew immediately we messed with each other, and so like got to know each other. But I was on a podcast with Derek Bozeman a while back at his little Caribbean restaurant. And he had my wife and I, it was about couples, and he had my wife and I on. And, he asked, like mildly said, I do all these things in all these different areas. And he asked my wife something. He said, how's it feel to be, Mrs. Barker? And, she was like, tiring, because her voice isn't always heard. Her voice isn't always out there because I'm just so in these spaces. So I know for you, you're just a solid and good brother, but that meant the world to us, man, when you asked her to be on your podcast, man. I just wanted to tell you that publicly and live, man. That meant so much to us as a couple because it really helped her understand her voice is important, her voice is heard, and what she had to say was something that she had never said publicly like that. I joke about it and we laugh about it, but I knew that, like when she was saying it. So I appreciate you for your space, but I asked you the same question, What motivated you to be in this space? Because I've seen how you've hustled and done so many things, but then I also saw how you became passionate in this space and it just grew and grew and grew and grew. Like what happened? What was that switch that said, this is it. This is what I know I need to be doing.
Cool. So just addressing why I asked your wife to be on my podcast. When we first started, you see a lot of podcasts that are very celebrity driven. People want to interview celebrities. And those are great, especially if you can come from a different angle and hear something that people never heard from that celebrity. But for me, I just wanted to have real conversations with real people about real topics that we're experiencing in this world right now. I wanted to recreate that conversation that we have in the barbershop, that conversation that we have at a dinner table when all of our favorite cousins come together at the family reunion. Like we have lived podcasts for a really long time,
right?
But I wanted to recreate that and bring it to an audio format. So that's why I just began to interview people that had something to say that was real people. Yeah, you ain't got to have a name because in the podcast world, just because you're a celebrity, don't mean your podcast is going to be good.
Say that again.
Like that. So, and that's the one myth that us as podcasters we're really learning, that celebrities will start something 21 episodes down the road, they thing done. You know what I'm saying? So like because in the podcast world, people are listening for something that's authentic. They're listening for a real experience. How can they really connect to it? So for me, how I got into it, I'm gonna be real. I had a lot to say about a lot of stuff, and I didn't want to be politically correct about it. Like, I just wanted to talk my talk, man, and I ain't want no rules. Y'all know me. Come on, man. Like, sometimes I'm the youngest in the crew, because sometimes y'all be telling me, like, y'all be trying to see what I'm gonna say. Am I gonna be too wild with it? And I wanted a platform with no rules. And that's what my platform gave me. It gave me an opportunity to have no rules. And because of that, people come on there and be so authentic. People are so real. It is like, I have episodes where a brother, Dr. Gary White, is giving a live session to a brother having issues in his relationships, right? I have a podcast where brothers are in the room telling their story of how they've been hurt, opening up in a way where brothers don't open up, right?
Right.
And then I got women texting me and calling me like, yo, I have never heard a conversation so real, so raw. That information has helped me shape my lens of how I view my man and how I view my relationship. So for me, man, I wanted to take the gloves off. And like I said, Keith was the one that, Keith, me and him worked together in my first venture, Spendify. He was one of the first people that came on the team. And we always had conversations in the office. And Keith was just like, bro, you need a podcast. And he was saying, he told me that for like a year straight, and I ignored him. And so one day I said, let's do it. And 100 episodes later, man, we
right.
Say that.
We
man,
here.
let me jump in, man, because you said something, Eldridge, about like the formula, right? Everything, just in my life and everything I've observed, there's a formula to some level of success. You just raised authenticity, right? I want to hear from Darius and Keith. What's an ingredient for a successful podcast? Something that is gripping, that keeps people engaged. So El gave us authenticity. Darius, what would you say, man? What's one of your ingredients that you're like, if you don't have this, you're not going to be able to, the cake ain't going to rise, the crab legs ain't going to taste right, it ain't going to work.
Well, first off, if anybody messing up crab legs, we got because that's sacred. We got to make sure we get that right. But what I will say is, first off, there are so many answers to that question from my perspective. But what I think is paramount, and I'm actually going to kind of take what Eldridge said and go a step further, is you got to have something to say, right? But everyone thinks they have something to say. And that's where that's where a podcaster has to do their work. Because just because you feel like you've got something to contribute doesn't mean it's ready to be contributed, right? And so I operate under this philosophy that we as Black folks, a lot of the times we tend to want to ask the CEO of an organization or our favorite celebrity in that lane for an answer, when in reality, the answers are everywhere around us, right? They're in our neighbors. We're passing a doctor, a lawyer, attorney, I'm gonna be real, an exotic dancer, right? We're passing all these people in the grocery store, and their answers that, what'd you say, brother?
I said, I've interviewed a few of those.
as have I, right? And it's real talk, right? The point here is that you have to be the person who can knock on a door, answer an email, and quickly get to what does this person really have to say and contribute, right? So having a real message that aligns to the passion and the purpose of your particular platform is a whole lot of P's, but a real message that aligns to the particular platform that you have is the biggest key out there. And the easiest way to put that is you have to know your own brand as a podcaster and as a podcast to ensure that the messages delivered match your brand. Because if you don't match your own brand, then as Eldridge brought up, it is no longer authentic and it won't resonate.
So Darius, do you see yourself extracting, right? Because you're trying to pull out from different people what your particular podcast brand is about. You're like, okay, I know you are, because people come with a gang of stuff, but you're trying to zero in on that piece, pull it out, and allow it to really flow. So is extracting that information, is that something that you study? Is it a gift? Like, how do you get to the core of what you need from people?
Yeah. I consider myself a surgeon when it comes to what I do here, right? And I say that because we've grown to the point, While Black is big, right? And we've grown to the point that the vast majority of people I interview reach out to me now. And so what that does is it puts the onus on me to force a conversation with them and dig into what's real. Because everyone wants to talk about something, but only 30% of the people I interview know really what they want to talk about before we turn the mics on, right? And my role is to have that pre-conversation and understand how to navigate what we're going to do on the interview and get to what they want to communicate, but more importantly, what my audience needs to learn. And I think it's the combination of an innate skill and practice, right? I watch interviewers, I study interviewers, I critique my own interviews, and I'm constantly thinking of how do I make it better. On top of that, before any episode from me, and this is because of the type of podcast that I have, I put hours into preparation for any interview, from everything from studying that person to understanding theories and industry specific information, so that when we sit down and have this conversation, I can drill into what's really important and make sure that my audience has a very clear understanding of what they're trying to do.
All right, I got to follow up, Darius. I'm sorry, brother. I got one more follow up, y'all. Cause see, I'm getting, I don't care who watching, I'm getting mine, right? That's what we say. When you come to Black Man Lab, make sure you get what you need. I'm up in here getting what I need. Last question. Your preparation, because one of the things that we talk to our young people about is everyone has the will to win, but not everyone has the will to prepare, right? What's that preparation? Your podcast is what, an hour, 2 hours, how many hours?
It's typically anywhere from 45 minutes to 65, 70 minutes.
Okay. So for that 45 to 75, what's your preparation to produce a quality 45 to 75? How many hours?
Yeah. I say on average, and I continually get better, but it really does depend on the topic. On average, before I record that 60-minute interview, I've probably put in close to 8 to 9 hours, right? Because I structure my interview and I have a process that I follow And it's strategically designed to make sure that by the time we get to the meat of the conversation, everyone listening is like, oh, that's my homeboy. He's the same kind of cat I am. I can listen to him, right? No matter if you're Martin Luther King III or David Banner or Boone or Farnsworth Boone. What's his name? Farnsworth Bentley.
Farnsworth
Bentley.
Right.
That's right.
It doesn't matter who you are, but by the time we get to the 20-25 minute mark, everyone listening is going to be like, okay, I can hear what this guy has to say. I can hear what this guy has to say. And then from there, there's a very structured set of questions that I've designed. And those questions come from hours of research, whether that is reading articles, whether that's listening to YouTube interviews, whether that's looking up industry specific statistics. It's a smudge, a hodgepodge of information that I go pull in the days prior to an interview. And I do most of it, I'd say within 3 or 4 days of the interview. So it's all fresh.
Gotcha.
Now, what I want to do, because that's some critical information, and I've heard from Darius, I've heard from Eldridge with respect to your preparation and the conversations. I'd like to hear from Keith and from Mark, like on the other side of it, what's that preparation look like? What's that tech preparation look like? Mark, I mean, I know for a fact, we gave you hell. Let me just say.
We didn't give him hell. We didn't give him anything. He's like, this is some up out the mud type of creation. You know, he just put his hands in and was like, all right, we're going to shape this. And here we are. You know, I was watching the intro. I was like, when did we get these graphics? That's dope.
Man. So I got to ask, like, Mark, we're going to start with you on that one. Like, so from, let's just say last year when we started and that very, very difficult pivot that we did, but you navigated us through it to now, you know, how solid we are with the intro and everything. What does that preparation look like? How, you know, on scale 1 to 10, or what your life looks like compared to what it is now?
In terms of preparation, as you said, I just kind of got thrown into it, right? So I had to figure it out as we've gone, and it's a lot easier now than it was on day one. So, you know, trying to.
What did that look like? Did that look like reading books? Did that look like buying equipment? What's the tech side of it look like? Unpack that for some brothers that might be listening, trying to get in that space.
Oh, so first, so we're streaming right now live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We're using a tool called Restream, which I had to find out what that was, which allows us to send. So we're doing this through Zoom, and then we're pushing the signal out to all 3 of those, so that happens all at once. It's evolved since we started doing this as to how it works. So I had to keep up with exactly how the technology works. Zoom is different almost every week. We had to figure out the audio. I know more than one of you is clearer now than you used to be because a new camera or a new laptop was purchased. A microphone or something happened between the first day and the other day, you know, and today, in order to figure out exactly what that looks like, how we sound.
Hey, Mark, Maoli got it straight. You don't have to keep on going on and on about it, bro.
Hey.
I love it.
Me, bro.
I love it.
Hey, man, I just literally, you know, outside of texting, man, you know, that's people like, I emailed you, I've sent you a Google something. I'm like, bro, just send me a text, dog.
Right. The shade of it all. I love it.
But Mark, I mean, the question I think Joe has raised, I just want to ask, I want to go another step with this. Like, how much has stuff changed since we started this? Like, for real, like, how quickly are things evolving from the time the pandemic kind of started and got us on this platform until now?
Hey, Maoli, can I add to that? Because I know y'all going to answer this, and I want to dovetail off of that. Because there's a community like Vlad and Kevin Samuels, Kelly Stamps, auditors, crypto and stock, all kind of creative reviews, you know, and what is the YouTube and as well as in the podcast where they're crossing different platforms. So
YouTubers are not podcasters.
Well, okay. Well, I'm just saying you know, cross-functional
This is an inside joke.
platform.
That was just me and Keith. We be
So
there.
I just want y'all to add to what Maoli was saying, and Joe, also the monetizing of this. You know, Kelly Stamps goes through how she gets paid $40,000 a month, and she goes through how she gets that funding with less than, I think, 100K viewers each, you know. And so in any case, I just wanted to add that. Thank you, brother.
So I'll start with Molly's question and I'll kick it over to Eldridge to talk about the monetization. But as far as like how technology has changed since we started, everybody obviously in the pandemic started using Zoom, and Zoom was not then what it is now. So there was literally an update almost every week about how the technology worked. Some of these things that we're using to push it out, they didn't actually exist then. And because companies were rolling out patches and updates really quickly. And then everyone started using this technology. So there are things like, if you know what things look like, Streamlabs and StreamYard and all these other different platforms that are out there where it has made it financially easy. I don't know from having a studio, but from the remote aspect, there are plenty of software vendors that you can use software from and start a podcast. Now, in terms of how you monetize that, I slide that over to Eldridge.
And before we get to Eldridge, I just want to weigh in that same line of question before we get to the monetizing of it to Keith, man, because you've been doing this for a number of years, more so. And, you know, those changes had to be exponentially more than what Mark had to navigate through the past 12 months. So what does that change look like for you, and how do you keep up?
Well, to piggyback off of what Mark was saying, the technology, as far as even from like the hosting platform, even from like the streaming platform, Zoom is a good one, but they also have other ones that are just podcast specific. Harder. We first started, me and LG, we started with this board, just a regular mixer, 6-channel board. Now the industry standard is like a Rodecaster. Most podcasts right now, I'm speaking to you guys through the Rodecaster. Most like podcasters have that Rodecaster hardware, and on top of that, I want to go back and answer the other question that Eldridge and Darius answered, because it kind of ties in. It's the consistency. You know, authenticity. You need to be able to speak to somebody, but for a successful podcast, you need consistency. If you're doing it every week and you have your template set and you're doing your updates, you'll just notice like, okay, this person came up with this piece of technology to make it faster. I kind of look at the podcast industry like the tech industry. That's how me and Eldridge met, right? Tech doesn't mean you have to code, right? Tech means that you can get into the industry and bring your skills to a specific company. And podcasting to me is the same thing. Everybody knows I'm behind the scenes. Eldridge talks. I'm behind the scenes. So I'm perfectly fine with that. But on top of producing, you have other roles. Darius talked about researching for 9 hours. There's a researcher job in that. So like the staying abreast to like the new apps, like every week there's like a new podcasting app. Even when they had that Clubhouse craze, people were a little scared, like, oh, well, this kill podcasting. One thing I know about podcasting, it's not going anywhere. This is okay. Because I look at talk radio, and the fact that talk radio has made it through all these waves, podcasting is just the evolution of it, you know. But the hardware, it's changed. It changes all the time, and I mean, we always get an update. We're always trying to find new platforms, and it's really just all about how can we. It's still the wild, wild west. Like, on top of the podcast industry, people are trying to normalize, and they're trying to. And Darius to speak to this too. They're trying to get it to like the old regime, right? Every time something new comes out, they want to take it back to the old ways things were, like a record label, right? Now kids can be independent. Right. Same thing with podcasting. I don't need a radio show. I can start my own podcast. And like Brother Grant said, you can start making your own money, right? I don't need to sign. I don't need a whole industry behind. I don't need a whole radio station. I have my own radio station here. So that's the biggest thing I see is like the hardware and the technology is really just going to help us stay independent. That's what I'm.
Super quick question, Joe. Let me just jump in really quick. How many people on your team, Keith, to produce a show? Darius, how many people on your team to produce a show, just so that people can understand, the complexity, or, just how you're able to manage?
Yeah. Well, I say this: it could be a one man band, right? I know for us, for Eldridge Podcast, we have about like 5 people running, but we definitely can use more. I know some really high successful podcasts have about 20 people.
20.
Because you also, it's not just about recording, it's about the lighting, it's about the research, it's about the markers, it's about the show notes, it's about the podcast covers. There's so much to it that, like, there's literally a job for each role if you don't want to do it all yourself. Now, some podcasters do it all themselves, but eventually it'll wear down on you, and you're not gonna be as successful.
Minimum weekly show, or can you do every other week, or can you do monthly?
Whatever you do, stick to it and do it well.
Yeah. That's what I'm taking from it, Darius. Like, if you're gonna do monthly, stick with monthly. Every month they need to be able to count on seeing you at that particular time, that particular place. If you're gonna be weekly, same thing. Because I'm hearing from you guys, that's when people fall off, when you're not consistent, when you're not following through with what they've come to know you for. Darius and Eldridge, can you guys talk about the monetizing of it a little bit, like Brother Grant kind of spoke on?
Yeah, I was gonna say to what you said. So in the beginning, I'm gonna be real with you. The number one thing you want to do is build your community. Your community is the key to your monetization. So when it comes to building your community, it's like getting to know a person, right? If you want to get to know a group of guys, it's easier to get to know these guys more if y'all go ball at the gym every Friday versus if y'all go ball once a month. You know what I'm saying? So if you balling with them every Friday, y'all chemistry gonna grow a little bit more. So let me say, I'm gonna wake y'all through the 5 monetization trails that any podcaster can do from beginner to top, but they all are relevant. So if you're a podcaster and you're just getting started, one of the easiest things you can do right now, no upfront money, no cost, go start you a account on Patreon right now. You start your Patreon, and that's what people.
Spell Patreon for me, brother. I'm putting this in the chat for them.
Patreon, I believe. I hope I said it.
You got it.
Hey, look, I'm like, you put me on. That put me in flashback to school. Like, oh,
I was about to.
Hey,
my bad, bro. My bad.
Not spellers. We are podcasters. Remember that.
How many apples you got? How many apples?
You know what, man? You know what? Just keep going, bro.
So number one, again, it goes back to building your community. So for my podcast, I'm very transparent. And I feel like some of the best podcasters are very transparent, and you live life through them. Like, there's some podcasts, they started with a girlfriend and then they broke up, or they didn't have no kids, and then you heard them go through becoming a parent. You know what I'm saying? So I'm very transparent on my podcast, because the community gets to know you. People text me all the time like, yo, that was crazy, but let me know about that restaurant you took your girl to. You know what I'm saying? Well, let me know about that spot. So when you build a community, people engage more. In Patreon, people are literally saying, I am giving you money every month because I want to hear more of you, or I want to keep this going. So our Patreon, we got Patreon members that start as low as $5 a month. And then we got some that go as high as $50 a month. It depends on what they want to give and how much you want to give to it. Number one. Number two, merchandise your podcast. As y'all see, Joe, Malvally, y'all got the Black Man Lab merch on, like literally selling shirts, doing mugs, doing hats. Let people rock and support your podcast. One thing that I love about our podcast, our titles of our episodes are pretty funny. Like, they're typically, we take a phrase that was said in our topic and we throw it on a shirt. One of my favorite titles, Mama Said Giving Them Yams. Amazing episode, right? But it's a shirt and people want to rock it. So merchandise your show, brand it out. The third thing is through sponsorships. Actually finding a brand that wants to present this content. The Black Man Lab, what is a brand that is very focused on Black men that needs more engagement for brothers, what brand could give y'all money to present y'all content every week? One of the times where we seen this happen really well was with Joe Budden and his podcast. When he was getting money from Cash App, he was getting money from all these other brands. I know there's a guy, Tim Ferriss podcast. There was a thing floating around with him saying that he does 2 sponsors a week on his podcast at $54,000 per sponsor. So he's technically making $108,000 per episode. And that's a goal to reach to, but I'm just saying your sponsorship could be anything. Somebody could be giving you $500 just to say that they presented the content. Ads is another thing you can go into. That's when you start really getting deep into the numbers, and I'll let Darius go there as well. And then lastly, something that people sleep on is selling tickets to a live podcast show. I know we did our first podcast show and 130 people showed up on a rainy day. So you can go check it out on YouTube. It was a great show. It was fun. But you can literally, if you got something to say and your conversation is that engaging, people would pay to come experience your podcast live. So those are 5 monetization trails that I feel like anybody could do if they hustle to get there. And I'm gonna pass it to Darius.
I'm probably a little slow. I think I missed one. I tried to document them. I got Patreon, I got merchandise, I got sponsorship and selling tickets.
And then
advertising.
Advertising. Okay.
Darius, you can hit on that too.
Yeah, I'll break that one down.
And Darius, before you go into monetize, can you talk about the size of your team?
Absolutely. So I've kept my team pretty small. I started out with just 2 of us, and I've grown to now there are 4 of us. But there are drawbacks to that, right? I'm slammed, right? I'm actively writing some descriptions now to bring on some more people because I want to add video in, and we're stretched. Gotcha. So I've kept it small for very strategic reasons, but I need to expand very much so right now. Hopefully you can see that in my eyes. Very much so do I need to expand right now.
I hear you. I hear that passion, brother.
So I'll add just a little bit to the monetization. One, Eldridge covered that extremely well. So I'll dig into the advertising just a little bit. Of everything that he talked through, I think advertising is probably the most difficult. And that is because there are benchmarks or hurdle rates that you have to surpass for most advertisers. And when I say most advertisers, I'm talking about national advertisers. Much like you said for sponsorship, if you've got a dedicated community and an audience that you can explain and describe to an advertiser or to a business, they're more likely to work with you, right? For instance, on my podcast, I can tell you that 75% of our listeners are Black folks, right? And I can share that. I can prove that. And so for any advertiser who wants to reach this number of Black folks, it opens the door to me. So here's some numbers to operate with. Most advertisers want you to have 5,000 downloads in a 30-day period before they'll spend money with you, right? Now, again, this is most. This is not an end-all be-all. I've brought in people who wanted less than that. Most want 5,000 downloads per shows in a 30-day period. The average podcast right now, according to Libsyn, which is a big hosting platform, the average podcast gets about 140 downloads in a 30-day period. So there's a huge disparity, right?
Yeah.
Bro, talk to him. Talk. How many you get, bro?
we do well. We probably get someplace between 18 and 22,000 in a 30-day period now. We've grown at this point.
Nice.
So in that, right now, this could get real complicated, so I'll keep it short. Advertisers typically buy off of a CPM, which is a cost per 1,000 downloads. The average cost per 1,000 downloads in podcasting is 25. If you understand your demographics, you can push that up. I typically charge someplace between 30 and 45 because I know my audience and I'm going to make you pay to reach my audience, right? So I want more because my audience is harder to get and I have such a strong relationship with them. When I talk, they respond. So keep that in mind. 140 is the average. The top 1% get over 70,000 downloads. To get into the top 5%, you only need 9,000 downloads in a 30-day period. After that, you need to truly understand your market so you can dictate your CPM cost to an advertiser. In that case, they'll typically come on board, with the option of a pre-recorded spot that they produce that you just drop in, or a host read spot where they give you either a script or some bullet points, and you create an ad on your podcast that looks, feels, and sounds like your podcast. That's the most important one, because people feel like as they're listening, they're getting a little taste of what you do. What I caution all podcasters for, without going deep, because this could turn into an hour lesson by itself, but we don't have that kind of time. But
I love it. Yeah, no, it's good.
What I would tell podcasters is this: you need to be really, really clear on your why. For instance, I had Wild Black going for almost 2 years before I accepted a dime. And I had my own reasons. I didn't want to water down my message with anything but the truth of what Black folks needed to hear, because that was why I came to podcasting. Once that was established, I opened it up. In that, you still, as a podcaster, need to be mindful of how much space you want to give to an advertiser, because the more space you give to an advertiser, the shorter your podcast is and the more disrupted it is. So keep that in mind. And from an advertising standpoint, I won't go much deeper than that, because again, that's a full-on digital marketing advertising lesson.
Well, brother, let me just tell you, that was great. And one of the reasons I'm glad you went into that, Darius, is Maoli challenged Marty and I at the beginning of this year, and I think we've done a pretty good job at it, is making sure that we're educating people on the topics that we're talking about, not just making these, prolific conversations that sound great, but also the people that are engaging are learning how to do things, what we're talking about, how to engage in that. And I think that was pivotal what you just said. Keith, I want to go to you because you got your hand up, man. So I need to hear what you got, brother.
I like everything Darius said, but I like to piggyback off of it and also say,
please teach more.
CPM model and the whole advertising model, that's fine. But this is the Wild Wild West, and this is podcasting, and we can make it what it is. And I've had opportunities to actually get ads, smaller ads, people who are willing to do business, small business to small business. And the CPM model is cool, but it goes back to what I was saying, how I feel like they're trying to restructure podcasting to be like radio. McDonald's, yeah, they have a certain amount of money that they need to do the advertising to advertise with you. But to me, advertising isn't the end all be all. Like Darius said, when you come into podcasting, I always tell people, what are you podcasting for? Is it for your community? Is it for clout? Is it for cachet? Community is, I'm trying to make some money, right? I have a big following. People want to hear me talk. I can sell them stuff. I'll make money. The other part is clout, right? You can get on a podcast and be a subject matter expert, not making all your money selling books, doing speaking events, and going over there. And the other part is, what I said, community, clout, and
cachet.
And cachet is the same thing, but also on top of that, interviewing people, right? If you have the cachet to get certain people on, we're in a space now where people want to hear stories, right?
Right.
Just getting somebody on who people, just nostalgic stories, get people on. And if you look at the numbers on, even like on YouTube, that's why I get offended when I hear advertisers ask me for 50,000 downloads, because I know 3,000 downloads on YouTube, right? 3,000 people isn't a lot of people, but it's enough for you to make waves. So like what I like to think about podcasting is find out why you want a podcast, and then the money's going to come to you because it's here, right?
Yeah.
Their game, if we play the CPM model game and the 50,000 download game, you're not going to win, because Darius is right. Most podcasts, they're not going to get a lot of downloads, right?
Gotcha.
I see Eldridge, you have your hand up. I want to throw this out. I need a quick, for y'all to give it an answer. Where are we as Black folk in this podcast game? Are we way behind? Are we neck and neck? Are we doing more than others? And when I say that, I'm not just saying purely monetary, because obviously part of what we do here is about value content. Darius, you raised it. You went 2 years without asking for a penny. It was about community. And so I just, with all of that balanced out, where are we as Black folk in the podcast game? Just you all's honest opinion.
So I'm going to say this, we're needed. We're still needed in this space. As many podcasts that are out there, it's more of us that need to get out there in our voice. We are we are literally shifting and disrupting the space. When you talk about Joe Budden, I give him a lot of credit because you didn't see exclusive deals to Spotify until Joe Budden came around. And then shortly after that, you start seeing the white boys follow and doing those same deals. So we're disruptive, just like anything we get in. When we get in this space, we just do our thing. And another thing I want to say before I pass it to them is just, we were just talking about numbers. I don't want people to get caught up on that. Like, I want people to realize, just get started, right? Because say you got 100 downloads, 100 don't sound like a lot, but if 100 people were in this room right now, I would be overwhelmed. Like, bro, that was 100 people that heard what you had to say. Now it's your job to treat those 100 people so good that they multiply it to another 100, to another 100. So really don't, like, a lot of times we disrespect our beginning following because we're chasing the big numbers. And that's why we're not growing, because you're not building no authentic relationship with your following. So the first goal that I would tell everybody to get to, honestly, is your committed 1,000. You get to your committed 1,000 followers, I feel like that is one of the best places to be as an influencer, period. Meaning every time you drop an episode, there's 1,000 people that's going to listen to it. Every time you drop a shirt, there's 1,000 people that's going to buy it. That's 1,000 people to go to your show. 1,000 is not a super big goal, but that's an attainable goal to get there. And that's a goal that allow you to appreciate the 200, the 500 before you get there.
100%. And just to add to that, right, the point was made before about community. If you got 1,000 people who are listening to you, there's a local business who needs to reach that 1,000 people that you can partner with. And there are a bunch of ways to do it, I'll add some more commentary around how we're doing in this industry, right? And there are a couple of perspectives to consider. From a content creation aspect, we're doing well when you consider all shows, right? When you look at the high-end network shows, we're under indexing severely. We're down around the 4 to 6%. And the reason that's important is because much like in television and film, there's this phenomenon that happens, right? 10 years ago, Black podcast listeners were 7% of the listenership, of the listening audience. Today, they're 12%. That's a 5 percentage point change. That's the largest change of any group of people across that 10 years, right? We grew the fastest. We're the second largest group of listeners. That's just when you talk about Black people. Now, when you expand that idea from just Black people to consumers of Black content and Black media, the number gets astronomical because, as you know, we are content creators, we are influencers, we are people who inspire, right? And so it leads itself to things like what Eldridge is doing around the Just Eldridge Media Network. It harps on the importance because it's proven that there is a marketplace that desires Black content, right? So what we have to then do is focus on creating quality Black content to be consumed by both Black listeners and those who would consume Black content. And that it creates this wide open playing field to grow to the $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 mark or listener mark. Because if you create quality and you stay dedicated to your community and you're consistently meeting those demands and those needs, you're going to grow. The problem is we either jump in and don't stick with it, because podcasting, for those who do it the right way, is harder than it looks, right? Or we don't put enough emphasis on creating quality content, because anyone can pick up a telephone and record a podcast episode, but if it sounds like trash, no one's listening unless you got Barack or Jay-Z or Beyonce on it, right? And how many of us are going to have that opportunity? So that's just a reminder that the numbers are small of who's creating content. The numbers of who's listening are big and growing. The combination means we can meet that need. We can be at that intersection and succeed if we come into the space willing to learn and do the work and create quality content.
So I definitely appreciate that context. You answered that great. And I tell you what, man, as we've done so often before on the lab, you know, the topic of advertising, we could do a whole lab on just advertising and dig a little bit deeper and get some of your intimate thoughts, because you've unpacked it very well. But I just get the hint that there's so much more that we could open up to really educate people. So stay tuned. We may come back to that. We're pushing to the time here. So a couple things I want to say. I'm gonna come to you, Keith. Give me one second. A couple things I want to say. And Keith, this is actually something that you mentioned. When I went to a couple of Mauli's listening sessions for the "We Need You Here," we Need You soundtrack. Everybody wants to be a rapper, right? But when I walk in there, what I see somebody on the boards. I see somebody producing. I see somebody working the sound room. I see somebody, producing. There's so many positions. And Keith, you mentioned something earlier, man. I'm writing this stuff down. And if I'm a young brother, I'm listening to, if I'm doing a podcast, you got researchers, you got lighting, you got behind the scenes. There's so many jobs that people could walk into and learn. And that's something I want to unpack in another session as well, because everybody has to know, like Mauli talked about how many on your team, there's people doing all kinds of different things that can be done at a very high level, that you ain't got to be, 50 years in the business doing this. And I think you guys have pointed that out, and I really appreciate it. The last question I have for you all as we get ready to close it out is, and we at Black Man Lab are about to have to navigate this. So I want to hear all of your thoughts on what next. Now that we open, right? Everybody going back into space, right? So what's next? How do we pivot it from space to this format, Zoom, Twitch, all these other areas? I've heard all of y'all say podcasts aren't going nowhere. How do we pivot to be in space but still maintain the much needed podcast arena that we're in, that we listen to, and we're trying to grow? What's that look like? And I ask for selfish reasons because we're about to have to navigate that territory.
Well,
anybody could jump in on that.
Yeah, I think it goes to what you're saying about Black people in podcasting too. Like, we need more Black people behind the scenes, helping these other Black podcasts grow. What's next to me? Better sound quality, because we're back outside. So I mean, nothing against the Zoom and the videos and stuff, but when it comes to podcasting, I'm a pure audio podcaster. Video is cool, but podcasting is about audio. Podcasting is about putting in your ear, you're on the way to go, call to action, you got something to do. So I think better sound quality, more people getting behind the scenes industry. I see a lot more people coming on to help podcasting grow. And to piggyback off of where we are as Black people, I see more, and there's ways too, podcast listeners are normally college educated. Right, that's what they always college educated. They have more money. They're like the higher brow of society, right? As Black people, when it comes to that, we have more people on the lower side than the higher side. So I feel like especially Black podcasters, we have to figure out a way to get these podcasts to our people on the ground and bring more diversity. Like I love Joe Budden podcast. I like 85 South. I like Gilly. I like all those podcasts, but we need more of our version of the Tim Ferrisses and Grant Cardones, and I love what Earn Your Leisure is. Those guys are on fire. Wow. Love their content because we need more of those divers. That's what's doing it just as media. We have different shows. We need more call to action and educational podcasts for Black people as well.
Got it.
Turn up on like shade room type stuff and all of that, and that's successful. Like Darius says, they're also consuming our content, right? We want them to consume some content that can level the playing field for us. And that's what podcasting can do. So yeah, coming back outside, I see more podcasts, more successful podcasts, better sounding podcasts.
Better sound. I like it. Anybody else want to weigh in? Mark, Darius, L, anybody?
Could I ask one last question?
Go ahead, Ron. Go ahead, brother.
Man, I'm always thinking in the organizing context. Is there a Black podcast
coalition
institute, right? Where people can say, I want to be involved in this industry and I can plug into it and learn this and that as a part of it. The Black Podcast Institute. Is there one? If not, Darius, Eldridge, Keith, it's time. Let's go. Need y'all.
I actually, like, just to jump in, I think that there are a couple of them that are doing well.
Okay.
One, in all honesty, I know Eldridge is doing a lot of work in educating people about podcasting in general, right? And that's some very needed work. I've been around and seen a couple of his seminars that he's put on, and they're spot on. Outside of that, there's another organization out of Atlanta called Black Pod Collective, and they do a lot of good work as far as educating people on podcasting, providing resources for podcasters, and creating exposure for podcasters as well.
Okay.
So those are two places I know you can go get some good information from.
All right. We appreciate you. We're gonna let y'all off the hook, man. Sound like somebody's doing it. Darius, where are you from originally?
And originally, I'm from Vicksburg, Mississippi, but I've been in Atlanta for almost 5 years now.
That's what's up.
From the SIP. All right.
Fellas, as we get ready to close out, one thing that Mauli has always challenged us with, and I love it because it keeps me honest, it keeps we brothers on the board honest in our efforts, is what are some of the habits, rituals, and practices that you do to, whether it's, you know, keep yourself energized, keep yourself moving forward, or to stay strong in the space that you're in, whether it's podcasting or strengthening the community. But what are some of your practices, rituals, and habits that you do? El, you probably knew that was coming. So Eldridge, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, again, just thank y'all again for just having this conversation. I'm glad y'all had a subject that I got something to say about. Appreciate it. But my habits, rituals, it might sound arrogant, but it's real, man. I listen to my podcast. Like, Keith always tell me, like, bro, you need to listen to more podcasts on your own. But it's like watching my film. I'm an athlete, man. And I look at production.
That's a great example.
I look at it like game day, and I'm like, dang, that was a good joke, or that question was good, or I missed that during the conversation. Because sometimes you get in the conversation and you miss something that you could have said. So I literally listen to my podcast to get better. That's what I do.
Eldridge, I gotta mess with you really quick, man. I was on with Miguel, and I were on with Derek Bozeman yesterday. I think it's gonna air over Father's Day weekend. And man, the brother's just masterful at these conversations and just being able to, I think it was 8 or 10 dads and children, and he just wove it all together. How much do you learn from just listening to him in terms of interview technique and things like that?
Man, it's crazy. We just did our 100. We just recorded our 100 episode, and Derek called in. I wouldn't even know Chief if it wasn't for Derek. Derek, I used to come up to the radio station, and he would just ask me to pick stuff up. One day he asked me to sit on the mic, and I didn't even know I had a passion for radio. And so Derek let me start speaking. Because of that, every other host on WAOK let me be on there. And that's when I got coined the Prince of WAOK. And for a long time, I was trying to be on radio. And Keith heard me on the radio. That's how we met. And so when I say Derek is the reason why I podcast, he put the mic in my hand. And a lot of people don't know that.
That's dope. That's dope. That's why I knew it had to be, you know, I just wanted to press it, man. The brother is magical with that thing, man. Very good.
Yeah. Look, Derek is a hard person to interview with if you got your own agenda. Because he controls his show. Like
that nigga was like this. He like you want me there? No, I'm gonna come over here. So,
Derek, that nigga, he's like, no, you're gonna talk about this, and he don't let you.
I've been on with him a couple times. It's definitely like that. I just learned I got to roll with the flow because that's his show. Period.
Exactly. You ain't gonna take over his show, man. Yeah. That's something we all can learn from Derek.
Yeah. Derek, man, what are your habits, rituals, and disciplines that Joe asked about, man? That make you, that make you, to put you in a position, man, to do what you've done at this very obvious, very high level.
Absolutely.
None your success and none of our success is by accident, right? So give us some gems for the young ones, man. This is that time.
100%. I have two things. One is the exact same thing Eldridge just said. It's about game film, right? I jump in, I listen many times at night when I'm laying on my pillow going to bed. I turn me on and I listen to my podcast, and I hear where I'm in my rhythm. I can hear what I'm missing, and I learn, right? You learn your own tendencies when you listen to yourself, because you do things that you don't recognize you do until you play it back and listen as someone in the audience, right? So I'm always getting better with that. Number two is I never turn it off, right? And by it, I mean this desire to live in this space and to create. And so my mind is always on, and I literally do mean always on. There are some people who say that's not good, but I think if it's done the right way, right? I'm not walking around with a piece of paper writing all day long, but I'm constantly keeping my mind in this mode that will allow me to find an opportunity to consume something, right? Because even in this conversation, right, because we're talking about podcasting, there are two more topics that I know I want to do just from listening here, right? Whether I'm scrolling on Instagram, I'm listening at work, if I got the radio on, if I'm reading something, if I'm watching something, I'm always on to understand, is this something that fits the filter of what Wild Black is, that I can recreate in a place that our audience can consume and become made better? So I never turn it off. Those are my two things, game pill, and I never turn it off.
Appreciate that. Keith, man, we want to hear from you and Mark. Mark, you're going to close us out with, so Keith, what about you, buddy?
One quick question, Joe, to Darius.
Yeah, go ahead.
B, do you see yourself doing podcasting full time at some point where this is it?
Man, it's so funny you say that, right? I won't give the specifics. I literally just turned down an out the blue offer to run a Black podcast network. I literally just turned it down. Now, the reason is because I got into podcasting with a passion, and it has to be my way. Like I'm at a place in my life where I understand that every great opportunity isn't necessarily great for me, because I'm in the space that I'm blessed and privileged to be in, and I want to operate in a certain capacity, in a certain way, and I want it to be my way. I don't want the bureaucracy that comes with it. I want it to be my way. But with that said, that doesn't mean there aren't some other things brewing, so hold tight.
I bet. I'm just feeling it. So I'm sorry, Joe, man.
You good, brother. These are things that help us all.
Everybody, come on, Key.
Similar to Darius, man. My thing is always on, like, because I'm always, especially when I'm listening or watching a show, I'm trying to figure out like different sounds. I keep the, let me get some sauce here. I keep the captions on. They'll describe the type of music that they use. I'm that kind of stuff down all the time. So one of my rituals is I unplug. Like after I come from a long recording session, I have to unplug. That's just for me, or just watch something, with my girl. It's just us. That's not. And then I'm not always just thinking about sound and recording and podcasting. So unplugging is a big thing for me. Like an hour or two, and then we right back on it, because we do
it. just an hour or two.
Hey, I will say, man, Keith is one of the baddest researchers I know, bro. Like,
that's what's up.
Man, his level of research is unparalleled. You know what I'm saying? Brother go down rabbit holes and just bring up information that really just makes what we do a lot more efficient. So I will say, I got to get that brother that, man.
Yeah.
Mark, we're gonna close it out with you, man, and want to hear from you. What are your habits, rituals, and practices, man, that have helped you navigate getting us from where we were to where we are, and helping us understand what's next?
From a tech stack, I like to know a lot about a lot, but that can be kind of overwhelming to kind of cover a whole bunch of different subjects. So I kind of let my interests, dictate what it is, and then I dive deep until I'm full, right? And then I move on to something else, and then I'll circle back around. So one of the things, especially now, webinars, seminars, all that kind of, where somebody's gonna like condense a bunch of information for you, right? And you can dive into that. And so YouTube University, right? If I want to know how to set something up, I can go on YouTube real quick and find a video where somebody did it, and then I can go practice that myself, right?
Okay.
Because of who the audience is, they're trying to help you set it up really quickly. My daily habit is I walk. So I do the trails near me, and it started off as a thing like, you know, I was a gym rat, and then we came in the house, and I got a gym downstairs, and I got tired of being in there, so I started walking. And then I caught COVID, and that kind of like changed my whole situation. So I had to start slow again. So I started walking, and so I go to the trails. I take hills. I do that at least 5 times a week, and then I take martial arts, and it clears my head. You know, it gets me centered, because tech keeps moving, right? So you got to kind of like reset yourself. If you try and take in too much information, this can be overwhelming, right? So you have to get out in nature and those type of things and just kind of clear your mind, and then come back in and try and mess with these ones and zeros.
Well, man, I appreciate that. I started doing a lot of walking as well. And unfortunately, thanks to Eldridge, when I be going out doing my walk and I come back and my wife be like, who email you getting now? So, you know, Eldridge just put me on blast now. He know my MO, so I can't even go walking by myself now. Thank you, Eldridge. Appreciate you.
Man, Joe, before we close out, I have one more critically important question. In order to have a podcast, you have to have a good looking beard like you brothers. Is that how does this crap work? I'm sick of this, man. I'm sick of brothers being able to grow that full ass beard, and I'm around here, man, still looking like I'm 12 or 13 years old.
Wow, that's the episode of Black Man Lab.
Pretty sure we got an episode that teach you how to grow this beard.
Obviously.
Content out there, brother. Put that content out there.
Rated R.
Nice, man. Why don't you close us out, bro?
Yeah, we always close out, y'all. We close out in a tradition offered to us by Queen Mother Injiri Alghani, who is an ancestor. And we say that we are a link in this chain and it won't break here. So we ask everybody to come off of mute, to lock up, because I can't wait. July 19th, we're going to lock up. Some of us are going to have on masks. Some might have on gloves. But we're going to lock arms in a big ass circle of powerful black men from 85 to 5, loving on each other. And we're going to say, I am a link in this chain.
I am a link in this chain.
And it won't break here.
And it won't break here.
I am a link in this chain.
I am
a link in this chain.
And it won't break here.
And it won't break here.
We are links in this chain.
We are links in this chain.
And we won't break here.
And we
won't break here.
Ashe,
brothers. Love you guys, man. Brothers, thank you for joining us. Marty, man, our love and our thoughts are with you, fam. We got you. We with you and can't wait to be back with you, brother.
Appreciate that, man. Great job tonight, everybody. Thank you. Thank you to the panelists. We love y'all.
All right, brothers. Y'all have a great one.